ever since I moved the Bible study time to 9:30 because I'm always late, and then today the installation is built into the second service, and there's no introit to save time off of that, but it never occurred to me that at the first service there would be no installation because it's at the second service, and so why the introit didn't need to be, but then it would have been a little confusing because you would have looked at the order of service, not you, us, would have looked at it and said, wait, do we do the introit now or do we not? And then Tom's got enough to worry about. So we're early, even though not, I don't know, whatever, open a Bible. The Lord be with you. Thank you, we pray. Lord, keep us steadfast in your word. Curb those who by deceit or sword would wrest the kingdom from your Son and bring to naught all he has done. Amen. Okay, you want to do Ecclesiastes or you want to do the auxiliary offices of the Christian church? Let's do Ecclesiastes. Probably the most depressing book in all of Scripture. It was your favorite? Okay. We got to talk a little bit about genre, or as the French call it, genre. Name some genres. Let's see. You've got like a narrative, got poetry, you've got epistle. Let's say you've got hymn. What are some other genres? Genres of writing. Narrative, poetry, epistle, hymnody. There you go. Oh, okay. So you've got the persuasive. Ooh, lament. Lament is a good one. Satire is my favorite. Farce. I don't know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. With the exception of farce, I'm going to delete that. All of these are in the Bible to various extents. So what's the difference? Like, why worry about a genre of type of writing? Determines how you should think about it. Yeah, how do you read it, right? Oh, let's throw up there. Let's add to the list prophecy. Apocalyptic. Within all of these genres are kind of subsets of other things that happen. You read it differently, right? According to whatever it is. So the analogy I like to use is if I write a note to my wife, right? And I use some like inside jokes or something like that, or pet names or whatever, and somebody on the outside of that relationship were to read that and they wouldn't understand, they'd be like, oh, what does this mean? Or they would take something I said jokingly or whatever and then interpret it literally and then go around like doing that. They've done violence to the text. So that's a phrase that we use in biblical study. You've done violence to the text by taking it and running with it in a way that it was never intended to be. Never intended to be that. So when it comes to this, there's a genre. Ecclesiastes is a part of the genre called wisdom literature. Can you think of another book of wisdom literature in the Old Testament? Proverbs is all fortune, the fortune cookie book, right? This obviously makes a difference because if you read everything through a particular lens of, like, let's say epistle, all right? Epistle is pretty straightforward, right? Even a narrative, in large part, is pretty straightforward. I write these things like the Gospel of Luke. I sought out to write an orderly account of the things that have happened. And then he writes the Gospel of Luke, Part 2, the book of Acts, the Return of the Apostles. Oh, and my microphone's dying. Hang on, I'll be right there. Hold that thought. Or I guess I should hold that thought. Okay, so if you're looking for an orderly account and you're reading into it some other book, then you'll look at a book like Proverbs and it'll say, answer a fool according to his folly, or else he'll remain a fool, or something like that. And then, like a chapter later, it says, don't talk to a fool in his folly. He's a fool. He's foolish. And then you will become folly. Okay, so then somebody would look at it and say, oh, like the Bible contradicts itself. Just like throw away the entire thing and don't be a Christian. How do you feel about that? Hang on. I hope you feel very poorly about that. It's ridiculous, right? It's almost like human beings live in context and have a multitude of irreducible qualities, memories, and experiences that make the application of any sort of genre or writing or story, for that matter, more complicated because of those nuances. So, I don't read Shakespeare to my kids at night. When they were little, what would you read? I mean, well, I read The Hobbit to the boys once. It's awesome, and but they call it the Dragon Book because there's the dragon on the cover. And I remember Isaac he was real little. He was probably like 3 or 4. He said, "Dad, when is the dragon going to be in the story?" And I'm like, I hate to tell you this, but he's in there for like 3 pages, and he like dies off camera. And I'm like, oh, well, welcome to Tolkien, son. It's beautiful. Hang on, let me change my batteries. Okay, put that down. Why do I mention this? Because who wrote the book of Ecclesiastes? Wonder who wrote the book of Ecclesiastes? Yeah, Solomon. King Solomon. In Hebrew, it's the Koheleth, which is why you see it translated the preacher. Could also be the teacher. Koheleth is the guy, the teacher. But it's been accepted throughout the history that that it's Solomon, because for everything we know about Solomon, he was the wisest one on earth, and people would come to him for advice, and because he was wise and he asked for that, the story about God. God said, fine, oh, great, this is awesome, you prayed for the right thing, therefore I will add $1 million billion to it besides. And he writes all this advice, and he's like, don't forget this advice, my son, and then you have Ecclesiastes. So let's just start at chapter 1. The words of Koheleth, the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Oy vey. Vanity, hevel, what is evanescent, unsubstantial, worthless, like a breath. Meaningless, like a, and it's gone. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. So I don't know. I don't really care for the word vanity to translate that, because it sounds like, when I hear vanity, I think, young girl in front of a mirror, right? That kind of, Hollywood star taking his 900th selfie of the day. That's when I hear the word vanity. What he means is it's useless. There's no There's no purpose. So I would prefer the older translation version, meaningless. Everything is meaningless. What does a man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? Well, you can answer that question right now. What do you gain by toiling? Toil. Yeah. Work for its own sake is fine. It's just fine, isn't it? I would think so. I mean, you need that satisfaction to get something, but still, like, I love mowing the lawn. It's just going to grow back. So vanity, everything is meaningless just for its own sake. So it's really sad that it's dead right now. A generation goes, a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises, the sun goes down, hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south, goes round to the north. Round and round goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. So you got this cyclical, the world keeps on turning, big wheels keep on moving, Pride Mary keeps on going. Rolling, 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 rolling. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. Hey, it's election this week. There's nothing new under the sun, right, Vaughn? Get out there, because need a legislature in the fall that will retain our anti-abortion laws. This is important, even though it's August, and who goes to vote in August? It is important. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? Huh, that's new. It has been already in the ages before us. This guy must be the life of a party. Hey, guess what? Heard it. Boring. Vanity vanities. All right, man. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after. Anybody depressed? No? You like this? Yeah, tell me more. You like it?
I love it because that's the way it is.
You love it because that's the way it is?
There's nothing new under the sun.
Nothing new under the sun. Okay, so I can take comfort in that. I can see it both ways. If there's nothing new under the sun, then there's nothing going to surprise God or something, Nothing could surprise God. But, this too shall pass, that kind of a thing. So it can really assist you in retreating to the promises of God. That much are new every day. The only thing that is new every day is the mercies of God. Everything else, comes and goes, whatever. The wisdom behind all of this stuff is sort of the axiom, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. I think that can lead very nicely into this idea. Vanity of vanities. Everything just goes around. There's nothing new that's ever happened before. So learn what happened before and learn what not to do. I, the preacher, have been king over Israel and Jerusalem. And I applied my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It is an unhappy business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. The search for wisdom. I have seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and a striving after the wind. What is crooked cannot be made straight. What is lacking cannot be counted. I said in my heart, I have acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who were over Jerusalem before me, and my heart has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceived that this also is but a striving after wind. For in much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. Can you relate to that? I can, because I'm so incredibly smart that I think about things in like a really deep way. You familiar with the story of Flowers for Algernon? Anybody remember that story? The story was a man who was a simple man, simple-minded man, pleasant and like worked in the town. Everybody knew him, kind of a thing. And then he was subjected to an experiment. Is this how it goes? He was part of an experiment to like increase his brain waves or something, and he became a genius. Like just like 3 times, 4 times the IQ of everybody else. Am I getting this right? I've never actually read it, but I saw the movie. the made-for-TV movie. And then eventually, like, he gets melancholic, right? He gets ennui. He gets depressed because he sees such a big picture. You want to add to this? Because I didn't. Oh, yeah, fails at the end, and he just goes back. He goes back to being a simpleton or something. But he's happy because he's not thinking about all the other stuff. I know you've been there. It's late at night. Things are going on, and you use the phrase, "I can't shut off my brain." Vanity of vanities. All things are vanities. I was doing a devotional reading of Job in Lent one year. I would get up very early. I gave up sleep for Lent. Not all sleep, of course, it'd be stupid. But I'd get up really early and then read Job, and that was Lent of 2020. So you can imagine, everything was really timely. I'm reading about this miserable guy the world's out to get, and like God doesn't care about him, and then like the entire world collapses around me, and I'm like, I guess I'll finish the book, but the mercy of God is new every day. Let's keep going to chapter 2. I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself. But behold, this also is vanity. I said of laughter, it is mad. And of pleasure, what use is it? I searched with my heart how to cheer my body with wine. I don't think he searched with his heart. It's like I said of pleasure, what use is it? I became an alcoholic, but even that was, my heart still guiding me with wisdom, how to lay hold to folly, till I might see what is good for the children of man to do under heaven during the few days of their life. So it's not just for his sake, it's for somebody else's, because he is the teacher, he is the Koheleth. So it's I want to see what's good for the children. I want to know what to direct people, and everywhere he goes, he's just stuck in this melancholy. I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks and planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of growing trees. I bought male and female slaves, had slaves who were born in my house. I also had great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had been before me in Jerusalem. I also gathered for myself silver and gold and the treasure of kings and provinces. I got singers, both men and women, and many concubines. The delight of the sons of man. The delight of the sons of man. It's the most polite way I've ever heard that put. Let's see, concubine. Where am I? I'm just trying to find it. Oh, I'm in the wrong chapter. Verse 8. Many concubines. It says, lass in the harem, lass in the harem, woman, lady, mistress, concubine, demon? Hebrew is just so weird. Sadah is the word. It could also mean demon, but it has a little note here. It says uncertain. Like, well, why? All right, whatever. Okay, verse 9. So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me. They say that Richard Cory owned one half of this old town with political connections to spread his wealth around. Born into society, a banker's only child, he had everything a man could want: power, grace, and style. But I worked in his factory, and I cursed the life I'm living, and I cursed my poverty, and I wish that I could be, I wish that I could be Richard Cory. He freely gave to charity, he had the common touch, and they were grateful for his patronage, and they thanked him very much. So my mind was filled with wonder when the evening headlines read, Richard Cory went home last night and put a bullet through his head. But I worked in his factory. Anybody? You know that? I don't know that. Love that song. Vanity of vanities. Dude had everything a man could want: power, grace, and style. I was talking to a friend of mine who has another acquaintance or somebody he works, acquaintance is the hardest version of that. Dude makes like $3 to $5 million a year or something like that, one of these guys. He's miserable. At least this was the report to me. He doesn't have friends. He can't trust anybody. He can't spend his money. There's too much. It's vanity of vanities. So it's not just, I don't know, I said that, I don't know, if I won the lottery, I would know what to do with it immediately. There'd be this foundation and this endowment and this whatever and this chair at the seminary, all this, certainly no more debt here. It would be, everything would be, and I'd probably buy a new truck. But that's it. The rest of my lifestyle would not change. I'm not. Frank Wozniak asked me this week, if he wins the Powerball, will the church accept the tithe? I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, Frank, I'll pray for you. But it's gambling, isn't it? I don't care. You could rob a bank if you want to give $6 million to St. Paul. I'll take it. Okay, then don't rob a bank. Don't. See, now I have to go and say, yes, Your Honor, I did suggest that he robbed the bank. Okay, verse 11. Then I considered all that my hands had done and the toil I had expended in doing it, and behold, all was and a striving after the wind. There was nothing to be gained under the sun. So I turned to consider wisdom and madness and folly. So he said, I've searched out for wisdom. I've built a bunch of stuff and played in my playgrounds and the Dow Gardens of Solomon. And then now I'm going back to wisdom. What can the man do who comes after the king? Only what has already been done. Then I saw that there is more gain in wisdom than in folly, as there is more gain in light than in darkness. The wise person has his eyes in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. And yet I perceive that the same event happens to all of them. Oh, almost like God makes the rain fall on the righteous and the unrighteous alike, right? Then I said in my heart, what happens to the fool will happen to me also. Why then have I been so very wise? And I said in my heart that this also is vanity. For of the wise, as of the fool, there is no enduring remembrance, seeing that in the days to come all will have been long forgotten. How the wise dies just like the fool. So I hated life. This is Rita's favorite book. I'm not reporting. I'm not being charitable. That's the whole picture. Because what is done under the sun was grievous to me for all his vanity and striving after the wind. I hated all my toil in which I toil under the sun, seeing that I must leave it to the man who will come after me. And who knows whether he will be wise or a fool. So now you can see how the parable would be connected. Today's parable in the gospel, rich wise man got an abundance of crops, and he says, I'm out of room. My storehouses are not big enough, so I'm going to tear down these storehouses, and I'm going to build up more storehouses. I know, I'll add a shed so that I can put my new boat into it instead of, whatever. Nothing against people with sheds and boats, but it's kind of the idea. And then now you've laid up treasures for yourself. Eat, drink, and be merry. And that night the Lord came to him and said, you fool, this very night your soul will be demanded of you. Then who's going to get your stuff? Some idiot that comes after you, right? Usually one of your kids. Well, it's true. I've seen it. Oh, I've seen it. Hey, keep in mind the ministry and any other charitable thing that you want to contribute to. I've seen it way too many times. Either siblings torn apart by arguing over mom's money, or they just use it to buy a boat or something else. Again, nothing against boats, but whatever. Yeah. Think about your legacy as you get to the end. What legacy do you want to leave? Think of somebody like Elmer who left, whatever he did. Yeah. Tom.
We were on a lengthy trip down south and coming back, whatever. It was amazing to see how many camper trailers were out on the road.
Oh, we're on 75? Yeah, I noticed that too.
Wanting to sell that trailer.
Oh, wanting to sell it. Oh.
It was just amazing how many trailers we saw, all by the way, they wanted to sell it.
Michiganders take their vacations very, very seriously. We dropped the kids off at camp last week at Lulele, and it was a Sunday, and I came back on 13 because it was bumper to bumper camper trailers. It's like Sunday, and you could just feel the depression too. Like, I don't want to go back to work. It was so funny, just cracks me up. Where are we here? Who knows where? Yet he will be a master. Oh, the parable of Jesus. Like, this is the parable of Jesus of the rich fool. Is not the meaning. Not to take away is don't prepare for retirement. Right? That's not the point. The point is not don't get insurance because God will provide. Well, the Bible also says don't test God. And we're like, I'm going to walk into the middle of the highway, and if God doesn't want me to die, then he won't let me die. You idiot. Get out of here. It's like the old story about the guy whose house was flooded and the waters were coming up. And so he climbed up into the top of the roof, and he prayed, oh, Lord, save me, Lord. And soon a guy in a boat drove up and said, hop in. And the man said, no, the Lord will save me. And then soon after that, another guy in like a helicopter flew by, and he dropped a rope ladder, said, grab on. And the guy said, no, the Lord will save me. And then the waters rose, and he died, and he goes up to heaven, and he says, Lord, I thought you were going to save me. And God says, I sent a boat and a helicopter. What did you want? God works through means. The point of the parable, he says, you fool, this very night your soul will be demanded of you, then who will take it? It's mimicking the language of Ecclesiastes. Why build up so much that you couldn't even possibly use? So the message that Jesus is portraying is not necessarily, you can do this at other parts too, it's not use your money for good rather than awesome. Give to things, sell all your possessions, give to the poor, that sort of thing. The point is the way the rich man is thinking about his wealth. He is obviously coveting those storehouses, which is idolatry, and he's living his means are way outweighing what he's actually doing. So that picture is meaningless, everything is meaningless. It does not mean, I want to be real clear about this, does not mean you get to a certain age and you'll want to retire, which is an okay thing to do, and then you have this 401k and an IRA, and you are kind of set up like that. That's not you. Everybody clear on that? It could be, though. I could make that work in a sermon. Yeah, Marion.
So then, what would you think of a person, I know this person, with a mortgage-free home.
Mortgage-free home, yeah.
She mortgaged it to the hilt.
Oh.
Then she put a loan on her car, took all that money and donated it to the church, who was saying we need donations.
Wow.
So she donated it all to the church, to a neighboring church here, Lutheran church.
Mm-hmm.
And then about a year later, she passed away.
And all the debt was gone away?
No.
Oh, left the
a
debt
real
to her
mess
kids.
For her daughter to clear up, and they just went in and cleaned up what they wanted and walked away from it.
Yeah,
And nothing but trouble for her daughter.
See that? Yeah, okay, so the story was about somebody who
And she was retired.
mortgaged and loaned and took money. Well, what is a mortgage or a loan but money that isn't yours? It's what it is. So take money that isn't yours, give it to the church. Okay, it's fine. I'm fine with like insurance policies and things like that, but that is your money, and that's how kind of capitalist ventures work. That's how capital gains work and anything like that. But give it to the church and then died, leaving an ungodly mess for her children. Right? Yeah.
The church is not asking for that.
No, well, sometimes.
If you increase your donations, please do, but
Right.
don't go doing something that foolish.
Yeah. Yeah. Her heart was big toward the church. I think it was probably, not knowing more of the story, I would say objectively, from a thousand-foot view, she was not thinking about her children who had to clean up after her. Similar to the way I've seen this time and time again, grandma dies or whatever, and she really didn't take care of everything. And it's a real burden on a family who is also trying to mourn in their own ways. So now they got to figure out, where do I send, how many death certificates do I need? I got to sort this out. I got to talk to my idiot brother in Arizona, stuff like that. So I think it's the best gift a parent can give, an elderly parent can give to their children, is make sure everything is all lined up. Even down to, this is what I already talked to Pastor about my funeral service, even down to that. Because I've seen that too. I've done 116 funerals where they're sitting there, they're like, well, I think Mom would, I'm like, this is what you want. This isn't what she wanted. This is what, I don't know, it's complicated. Yeah, I don't like that. I don't want anybody, we've got a debt on this building. Don't take out a loan to pay off the debt. You're just shuffling money around, and I guarantee you the rate we're getting on this loan is better than the rate that you're gonna get from a personal loan. So don't do it.
That's not what God wants a person.
I don't think it's responsible. No, I don't think it's responsible for that. What is responsible, what God does want, is for you to exhibit an attitude like the widow's mite. But in the example you said, it's not her money. That's the bank's money. That's not, you're creating another problem by doing that, It's like if I want to give somebody zucchini, I'm not going to go to my neighbor's house, take his zucchini, and then go and give it to the person so that they go, wow, what a generous zucchini giver. By the way, it is zucchini season, so keep your windows rolled up in case somebody, a drive-by zucchini. Oh, you got zucchini bread already, yeah. We've got like 10 in the, not 10. We got some in the fridge that pretty soon needs to be made into bread. Well, they're not pretty, but they're not dead. They can be zucchini bread. Okay, so back to Ecclesiastes, which the parable really reflects, and what genre is this? It's wisdom. Sometimes it's satire, which we'll get to see. Oh, and sometimes it's poetry too. I erased that. There's nothing better for a person than he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. What? What did he just describe there? Toil? Not find enjoyment in the whatever, but find enjoyment in his toil? In the work. Eat, drink, work. Yes, and I agree with you. I agree. I know I was teasing you, but I agree with you. Like, there's nothing about, like, what's life? What's the meaning of life? I kind of just like existing. Like, if you can find contentment there's no greater gift on earth. Every bout of depression I've ever had is because I wanted something else, something different. And as my wife is now fond to say, if the grass is greener on the other side, water your own lawn. She is very wise. For apart from him, who can eat or who can have enjoyment? For to the one who pleases him, God has given wisdom and knowledge and joy, but to the sinner, he's given the business of gathering and collecting, only to give to one who pleases God. This also is vanity and the striving after the wind. So I think right at that point right there is the wisdom. What is the beginning of wisdom, according to Proverbs? Fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Who's that? I can't tell who that is. Is that Eleanor? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. It could be somebody from Seedling. I would kind of know them. Anyway. So to the wisdom, or to the good that God gives, that wisdom, that contentment. This is how I read it. And to the sinner, they're never content. They're never going to be happy. Turn on the TV, watch a crowd of protesters for whatever they're protesting about today. They're ungrateful. They have no gratitude in their heart. They have no understanding of how the world actually works. Wisdom eludes them. All they can do is call names and tear down and destroy, and they're not happy. They're not content. You're seeing it now in the fruits of the first, second wave of feminism, now that they're like older, 50s, 60s, and they have no one, and they're depressed. That was wisdom. Missy.
I'm just gonna say, when it talks about take joy in your toil and
Yeah.
appreciate all of that, I think we have to or can look through a little bit of the lens of the time this was written. They lived a subsistence lifestyle.
Oh, yeah.
A whole lot harder.
They toiled in order to survive.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. So when we think of toil, we think about 9 to 5. When we
Yeah, working 9 to. Yeah, ours is a very, very good point. Because like today, yeah, we we work, excuse me, for a set amount of time, and then we're gonna go home and take the kids to the pool, right? Drop them off at camp, go on a vacation, something like that. They didn't have vacation. They didn't go camping. They lived outside. Subsistence lifestyle. If you didn't get up, it's kind of like the only profession that I can think of right now that still does this is dairy farming. You don't have a choice. You have to get out and milk the cows at 6 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock in the evening. Or you've got to have somebody to do, you've got to rig something up or whatever. You don't have a choice. You're locked into that because that's your vocation, right? Can you think of any other examples? You got to get up and do it. Oh, shepherding, kind of the same way. Yeah, well, gee, it seems like agrarian lifestyles really lend themselves to this because you gotta go out and do it. Farming's kind of like that. I mean, it's a little less so now. There's less hard labor because of all the Roundup Ready stuff. But even gardening, like one of these days, we're waiting for corn day because you've got like 20 minutes before the corn is overripe. So we get the phone call and we rally the troops and we go out and we spend all day shucking corn and blanching them and bagging them. When's corn day? You can't plant, you can only plant it like 5 days in advance. So he'll go out there, take a bite, say, 5 days from now. It'll be, and then there it is. You know this. Done this too. Okay. Now let's go to chapter 3 and sing the bird song. For everything turn. You know that was coming, Howard. I'm not kidding. I had a class in seminary, second year of seminary, called Wisdom Literature with Henry Walt Roald, who wrote his dissertation on the book of Job. I love the book of Job. Job is one of my favorite books, actually. And we listened to this song in class. I'm like, I don't know. That was weird. Have a time for every matter under heaven. A time to born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to break down, a time to build up, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. I always think of Forrest Gump, because it's going on that one scene when they're leaving All Nations Capital after the Vietnam War. Time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek, and a time to lose, a time to keep, and a time to cast away, a time to tear, a time to sow, a time to keep silence, a time to speak, a time to love, a time to hate, a time to war, a time for peace. You think of anything else? I don't know. What gain has the worker from his toil? Now that's a rhetorical question. I have seen the business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart. Yet, so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. Now, this is kind of an interesting thing. When you cannot see the terminus of something, that is what leads people to despair. When you do not know how long something is going to be, God has put eternity into a man's heart, that leads to the melancholy of, I am not in control of the clock or the sun or the seasons. What am I in control of? I think I'll eat and drink and work, make myself useful, and just see if I can't be content in the wisdom of God. Did I just paint a picture of the perfect life? I think so. The people I know who live the longest, fullest lives are constantly keeping their hands busy. The people that fall into despair and whose brains kind of disintegrate are watching The Price is Right. Nothing against The Price is Right. Yeah. You know what I mean, though? Like, there's just a qualitative different way of living there. What gain has a worker from his toil? I've seen the business, where am I? I've seen the business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. He's made everything beautiful. Verse 12. I perceive that there's nothing better for them than to be joyful and to do good as long as they live. Also that everyone should eat and drink and take pleasure in all his toil. This is God's gift to man. So the next time so-and-so comes over and you open that other bottle of wine and it maketh the heart glad and everyone's laughing and having a good time and it's getting late, think about that. That is God's gift to you, that laughter. I perceive that whatever God does endures forever. Nothing can be added to it nor anything taken from it, which is the same as saying there's nothing new under the sun. God has done it so that people fear before him. That which is already has been, that which is to be already has been, and God seeks what has been driven away. Moreover, I saw under the sun that the place of justice, even when there was wickedness, and in the place of righteousness, even there was wickedness. I said in my heart, God will judge the righteous and the wicked, for there is a time for every matter and every work. I said in my heart with regard to the children of man that God is testing them, that they may see that they themselves are but beasts. I'm just a piece of meat to you. Yes, that's correct. Sort of what I mentioned in my sermon today. In the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of history and humanity, and yes, even in the church, yes, you are dispensable. You are. Of course, it's redeemed in Jesus because he knows how many hairs are on your head and you are not indispensable. But he knows the cells in your body and he knows you by name and loves you enough to die for you and to call you in baptism. Where am I? For what happens to the children of man and what happens to the beasts is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. They're all the same breath. And man has no advantage over the beasts. For all his vanity, all go to one place, all are from the dust, and to dust all return. From dust we made, and dust you shall be. A lonely little sparrow, who will write her eulogy? I will, said the earth. More Simon and Garfunkel. Anybody? No? Who knows whether the spirit of man goes upward to the spirit of the beast goes down into the earth? So I saw there's nothing better than that a man should rejoice in his work, for that is his lot. Who can bring him to see what will be after him? This is a really gospel-filled book if you think about it, because it does not give any indication that you can do something for, as a beast of the world, to go up and control that. It's meaningless. You chase after your good work, you do this, you do that, and it doesn't matter. God will do what he wants to do with you. Now, the Calvinists would run away with that and say, yeah, he's going to damn you to hell because that's his sovereignty. But we would take these words, I take these words, and see a lot of gospel in that. You know, what does the Lord require of me? Well, nothing, because I can't do anything. He does everything through me. But he only does that because the Spirit is in me, and the Spirit is only in me because he has redeemed me. And he has redeemed me, why? I don't know. Sure glad he did, but I don't know. There it is. Everything is meaningless. It's a reality check. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah. God seeks what has been driven away.
Because those who don't trust him, it's all about trust. Every day, we know life is not a series of spectacular events. It's
Yeah.
daily grind.
It's the daily grind is real life. Yeah.
So trusting, right?
Yep.
But here, when we can't trust, he seeks what has been driven away.
Right.
He seeks us.
He seeks us. And this is very close to this language of, for dust we made, and dust you shall be. So what has been driven away? And who has done the driving?
The evil
He did.
driven away,
Well, I'm thinking of, yes, you're right, all that. I'm thinking of the Garden of Eden now. When it is first said, for dust were you made, and to dust you shall be, God drove them from the garden, only to keep looking for them in the same way that he says in the garden, where are you? Well, he drove them away. He knows where they are, and that's where he tells his son to go. And so, yeah, that's beautiful, huh? Yeah, that'll preach. That's the heart of God, yeah. Which one? Quintilian, old Lutheran father, would say that is the proper work of God. The most natural thing in the world for God to do is forgive sins. That is the heart of his nature. It's the alien work of God to condemn, because he's not pernicious, he's not wicked. It is alien to his heart to be the righteous judge that damns the world. It is natural to be the loving father, because the first thing that we know of that God ever did was create a pure act of grace. He didn't need anything to be himself. God is complete in all, and it's incomprehensible. God does not need any of us. Again, dispensable. But the gospel is indispensable, because he seeks those who've been driven away. Yeah, good. Let's do one more section. Chapter 4. Again, I saw all the oppressions that are done under the sun, and behold, the tears of the oppressed, and they had no one to comfort them. On the side of their oppressors there was power, and there was no one to comfort them. And I thought the dead who were already dead more fortunate than the living who were still alive. Boy, didn't you think that in the last couple of years? There are a couple of saints that died right before that, and I'm like, phew, he missed that. Just barely missed it. Better than both is he who has not yet been and has not seen the evil deeds that are done under the sun. Then I saw all that toil and all skill in work come from a man's envy of his neighbor. This also is vanity and striving after the wind. Again, water your own lawn. The fool folds his hands and eats his own flesh. I love that proverb, right? Because you think like, okay, let's fold our hands and pray. But the fool goes, okay, let's fold our hands and I love that. Yeah. Better is a handful of quietness than 2 hands full of toil, striving after the wind. A bird in hand is worth 2 in the bush. Again, I saw vanity under the sun. One person who has no other, either son or brother, yet there is no end to all his toil, and his eyes are never satisfied with riches, so they never ask, for whom am I toiling and depriving myself of pleasure? This also is vanity and an unhappy business. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their toil, for if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. This sometimes people use this for weddings, yeah? But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up again. Again, if 2 lie together, they keep warm, but how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, 2 will withstand him. A threefold cord is not quickly broken. Better was a poor and wise youth than an old and foolish king who no longer knew how to take advice. Yeah, Luther may or may not have said this, kind of apocryphal Lutheranism, but he maybe said, I would rather have a wise Turk than a foolish Christian to be my leader. Sort of like saying, I'd rather have a wise Democrat than a foolish Republican. No, I'm sorry. Stop killing babies. Not with a gun to my head would I vote for you. Better was a poor and wise youth than an old foolish king who no longer knew how to take advice. For he went from prison to the throne, though in his own kingdom he had been born poor. Who's he talking about? Maybe he's talking about Saul. He's like the grandfather king, so to speak. No, not related to him. I saw all the living who move about under the sun, along with that youth who was to stand in the king's place. There was no end of all the people, all of whom he led. Oh, well, certainly, let's just go back a little bit. Certainly, the old and dumb king was Saul, and David is the young youth who clearly is wise, a man after God's own heart. Solomon saw that. Well, he heard about it. He was born after David was king, but first, second-hand account. Verse 16, no end of all the people, all of whom he had, yet those who come later will not rejoice in him. Surely this also is a vanity and a striving after the wind. Don't you see this again and again and again. I mean, I see, he's talking about kings, so it's hard not to talk about politics. How many politicians, it's so painfully obvious they're just trying to make a name for themselves. No one cares, right? How many phonies do you rub shoulders with? There's a few. You're a very polite man, Vaughn. A lot nicer than I am. You got to be vanity, yeah. Yeah. It's kind of designed to be that way, in a sense. Although I think maybe one of the original ideas or intentions was, you know, hey, your congressman will elect you for a time, and then you'll serve your people, and then you're done. You know, that kind of a thing. Yeah. Money, money, money. Right, because that gets you reelected. So if you've got a 2-year term or a 6-year term, you know, you try to do something useful for 3 months, and then the rest of the time you're back to campaigning. But I will be perfectly honest. I am just fine, thank you very much, paying all of Congress, whatever, $170,000 a year, whatever, for them to do nothing. I would rather them do nothing than anything, because they always mess it up. Whatever, right? Fight me on that. Like, especially when you got certain majorities in the House. Like, just, you know what? I will pay you to just go around and glad hand and post things on Twitter. Happy to do it. Shut up and take my money. Just stop getting in my way. Stop taking my rights away, et cetera, et cetera. That's just my personal opinion, but I have a lot of those, and they're usually very strong. These also are vanity, and vanities, meaningless, and meaningless. So, okay, so party for Valerie after that. She's getting installed at the 10:30 service, and then she'll be back here, and I told her that I'm going to make her say a few words and answer questions, and so we'll be fine with that. May the love of God, the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be and abide with you always. Amen. Oh, yes, there is Bible study next week. Randy Johnson is going to be here. He pitched for the Mariners a long time ago. No, it's different Randy Johnson. He's our CMMF, our church ministry and mission facilitator. So he's covering for us because David's son, Josiah, is getting installed as a DCE in Yuma, Arizona, you know, down in Mexico. And I'm just going away. So, so my trip is a lot more fun than his is. And but anyway, yeah, so Randy's going to be here, and yes, he is doing Bible studies. So there you go. All right. See you in the funny papers.